So does Israel's new pending coalition really constitute the greatest fraud in the history of democracy? Joining me to find out, former Labour Party Knesset Candidate Dr. Amir Khanifs and attorney Ziv Maor, legal counsel to the Hallel Likud Forum and Im Tirtzu. Ziv, I'll start with you. In what way is this a fraud? Is it just because Bennett has 6 to 7 seats, much fewer than Lapid?
No, this is not the issue. Okay, according to Israeli law, you can become prime minister if you have the support of 61 members of the Knesset, and this is the case with Bennett. This is not the reason why this is a fraud. The reason is that he gave a promise to his potential voters that he will sit with Netanyahu. And if he would have not given this promise, he would have not been elected whatsoever. We all remember that just in 2019, Bennett's party, at the elections of 2019, didn't pass the threshold to become elected to the Knesset at all. Without those voters who moved from the Likud to Yamina because of Bennett's promise, he would have not been elected to the Knesset whatsoever, let alone become a potential candidate for prime minister.
Amir, how do you respond?
Well, Bennett made it clear through his campaign, actually, that it's time for a change. And he tried all other options before he managed to have and to form these elections with, of course, the Labour Party and the Merits. But that doesn't mean there has been a fraud. In the end of the day, we all know that prime ministers or candidates for this office are negotiating the process through after the elections. And what Bennett managed to do is just to form a coalition, which obviously is against the wish of the right camp. But in the end of the day, it's not a fraud because he also talked through all his campaign about time for change. And that's what he's been doing now through forming this election.
So what do you make of the fact that at the same time, as we just heard a moment ago, he said that, Naftali Bennett, he said that the government would be 10 degrees further to the right than the current one. What do you say to this claim, then?
Well, let me say it in a way that that if it's clear that no one has managed to receive what all his requires from this government. Neither the parties from the left wing nor the parties from the right wing. In the end of the day, we are talking about a government that has compromises. But I think what he meant, that it's clear that this government won't be able to achieve what the left-wing parties wants to see in the future. And that's clear also to us. We understand that, as Mirav Michaeli said from the beginning, having Naftali Bennett as prime minister is not of her dreams, and it's clear for us. But on the other hand, we are all understand that this government is going to be kind of a compromise of different political agendas that we all trying to form, where we believe that changing Netanyahu from the prime minister office is one of the biggest achievements that we want to have through this government.
All right, so Ziv, I want to give you a chance to respond. Now, you've already mentioned that you do believe that this is a fraud and a betrayal of the right-wing voters, particularly Yamina.
Betrayal is your term. I didn't use it.
Okay, I'm summing up. Do you think that Bennett could win back some of his supporters with good policy as prime minister, or is it too late?
No, I think that it's not a question of good policy. Bennett is not capable of good policy. He was a minister for the past decade, and we've seen his performance. He's a poor politician. He has got no achievement whatsoever.
That poor of a politician.
No, that's the point. My counterpart just said this is something that Bennett managed to do. Bennett, even now, is managing to do nothing. He's a puppet. He's being used by the left. The left have in Israel understood that the only way to take Netanyahu down, to take the leader of the Israeli right down, is to find a puppet from the right. This is the only way to do that. This is how bad the shape of the left in Israel is currently. Bennett is doing nothing. Bennett would have not managed to achieve any of this and is not going to be prime minister for long, regardless of how long this government is going to stay, because he's done with his political career. His only potential of surviving as a politician in Israel is crossing the line entirely to the left and getting the left of the leftist and extreme leftist voter. This is the only way for him to survive another term. He will never gain the trust of right-wing voters ever again.
Amir, do you agree that to save his political career, Bennett must go further to the left?
Not at all. I'm quite surprised. Actually, I was sure that our colleague was going to congratulate us for forming such a beautiful government after so many years that Israel has no government for at least more than 2 years, and after 4 rounds of elections that none of the candidates has managed to achieve and to form a government. And finally, after more than 2 years, Bennett and Lapid and Merav Michaeli and the leaders from different sides managed to come together and to form a government. And that's something great for Israel, for Israeli society, and of course, for Israeli economy. No one really wanted to go for another round. And what we managed to do is, in fact, to take Israel out of this chaos. But it's clear that for the Likud and some members of the Likud, unless you have Bibi Netanyahu in the prime minister office, that means there is no government in Israel. There's no Knesset. There is no other institutions that can run this country. And that's the wrong thing about them. Whereas Bennett said yesterday, well, Israel could have also government that Benjamin Netanyahu is not standing at its top. And what's the issue here? I think, finally, it's clear for everyone from the results that we had in the recent elections that neither of the two camps has a majority. We had 4 rounds. It's not 1, it's not 2. We had 4. And it became very clear to everyone that there is no way that any of these sides or these camps going to form government without the support of the other side, or one party or two.
I will shortly respond to that, Amir, that, well, what the other side fails to understand is that forming government is not an end. It is a mean to execute ideology. And once the left achieves this goal of taking away Netanyahu, they will have to agree on stuff to do with the power given to them by the Knesset. And there is nothing practically and ideologically that can be agreed upon by this government. Now, as for the result of the last election, you can say that there is a majority in the Knesset to take Netanyahu away, and there is a majority in the Knesset for a right-wing policy. Now, the center has to compromise. Will they compromise on ideology, or will they compromise on personality? And we got the answer. They insist more on kicking Netanyahu away than executing the ideology that they were voted to execute. And this is the issue. Those politicians preferred politics over the choice of their constituents, and they will pay for it in the next election.
All right, well, with that, I think we have to end it. But Ziv Maor, Amir, thank you so much.
Thank you.